Pick and ban for game one. The question is, are we going to see that as your ban? Okay, well, there it goes.
No Ezreal allowed is what CJ decided. It's definitely the big ban. I got a big asterisk on my stat sheet here to just really ban out that Ezreal and just see what our SBE have to show, because that's been the big commonality in their two recent wins. It's getting that champion, smarter shot calling, letting them get to the late game, and Runglaive Ezreal, enough said.
Yeah, precisely. So, now SBE taking a while to figure out their draft in this particular game. What are we going to see them ban out? It will be the Kalista. Not too big of a surprise. We so rarely see that get through the pick and ban. The only time in recent memory was actually yesterday when we did see Kalista fall into the hands of Anarchy, but that did not result in a win.
Yeah, Anarchy, I believe Sungyun has a negative win rate, maybe 1-3 with that champion, so maybe just a calculated play or ban in that case by Samsung. Waiting to see if SBE just target, you know, the carries. The Coco and Space, these are the only common players from the strongest possible CJ Entis lineup. Or do they actually have a read on the likes of Helper, Trick, and Max? Do you even ban the Rumble that had one impressive performance and then one really shaky one?
Or the Gnar, too. Gnar is a great catch-all pick against a lot of laners, and especially for lane matchups. And Helper's Gnar was good in team fights. There's no question about that. He synergized very well with Mad Life's Alistar in terms of chaining CC.
And it's 5-12 still. I mean, people have been talking about the 5-13 Graves, but a 5-12 Graves ban to Space. Played it twice, 1 win, 1 loss. Interesting champion, but to actually absorb a ban.
This tells me that SBE may want to actually play Sivir here, because that is what Space likes to pick the Graves into, just so he can have that very dominant laning phase and just kind of create the snowball from there. Certainly not a high damage late game carry in terms of consistent damage over the course of team fights, but potent early on. There's an Italy ban up against Trick, so one of the Italy bans that we see, it's more of a pocket ban here in Korea just because there are only specific Nidalee players, and will they go ahead and take that Rumble first for Helper? There's a lot left on the board. Gragas still available. Alistar still up.
We get little bits of information about these subs just by the order in which the picks are taken. Okay, Rumble is a quite standard first rotation pick, but do they feel pressured to pick one of Max's champions? Do they feel pressured to pick one of Trick's champions in the next rotation and aren't confident enough to go for that counter pick later in the draft?
Yeah, that is the big question. Okay, Kassadin and Nocturne hovered over.
Mid-Nocturne played in the LMS recently. Chowie smashing on that champion, so we can dream.
Well, we see Nocturne top in the LCS. We see Nocturne jungle in several different regions now.
Not a lot of winning, though.
No, well, he's not very good.
No.
I remember when CJ used to play Nocturne mid as a TF counter. That was pretty funny. But Azir will be locked in for Sasin and the Alistar, so taking that away from Coco in the pick phase as opposed to directly banning it out. So where's Coco going to go here? He certainly has a very wide champion pool. He's proficient on Victor if he needs to play that in this game.
You know who I'm hoping for, Monte Cristo? Maybe it's Jace time.
I would love to see
Rumble in the top lane. What better time?
We have never seen the reworked Jace in Korea.
Oh,
Coco's
to this point. Flashing an Aurelia counter pick. Of course, we saw Faker pull that out to much aplomb against Ku earlier in the season. No real pressure to lock in that champion so far. But yeah, saw some magic damage in the top. Magic damage jungler, okay, mostly a tank, but still decent base value damages. Now we're seeing Corki be flashed as well. Smells like a Jace to me.
It would make a lot of sense of this composition, and certainly might be a strong pickup here. I would love to see it. The great thing about the Gragas Jace synergy is you can just blow somebody up, have him go into hammer stance where he does a tremendous amount of damage and one-shot somebody in isolation, or you have that option to disengage with all the poke that they have. I agree, this is a very strong composition for Jace or another poke mid-lane champion. Also, with the amount of AP, it would make it harder to itemize against. Corki just going to be the standard pick for Space, pretty much in any composition, though. So CJ, they've got a lot of different ways they can go with this right now. They really don't have to commit to one style.
Sure.
It does make SBE's draft a little bit harder.
I mean, Coco, it feels like AD is the big source of need from the mid lane that he needs to fill. Zed is another champion that does well in the laning phase, but probably not expecting a Coco Zed to come through. So it does feel like it's shouting out for that burst AD threat in Jace. It's very execution heavy when you're talking about Rumble, Gragas, Jace, if they do lock it in, because, you know, negative synergy between displacement and Rumble ult. Okay, if you can get the perfect isolation burst off, that can work really well as well. We're waiting in trepidation to see where does Coco go, because it feels like if he locks in Victor, we're really magic damage heavy, and he's locked in the Jace.
Yep, Janna Jace will be it. So
poke time.
Yeah, this composition really exciting. Of course, we do refer to Coco as Korean Sniper. He's had some amazing Jace games this year.
So this is his first game on the rework Jace?
Yes. It's the first game in Korea on the rework Jace.
I didn't even appreciate that. I thought there must have been one game around. I feel like the rework Jace, I know you were kind of really hesitant to call it buff. I think this is a straight buff. I think a lot of what he did before, okay, maybe you don't push down towers as fast, you don't get that leveled up W as early, but the EQ, the poke, certainly buffed up.
He's definitely stronger in the late game. I mean, there's no debating that, right? But the question is, he just takes a longer... They basically just smoothed out his power curve is what happened to him. So he does take a little bit of a hit to his early game, but his potency in the late game is greatly improved. So he's kind of, obviously there are a lot of comparisons between him and Varus. I prefer Jace to Varus just personally, but if we look at that mid-game power spike, that's where Varus is going to be stronger in comparison to Jace, but late game, that switches up. So it will be the Sivir lock-in.
Yeah, and Spenu, very balanced engage comp coming through with the likes of Sivir. I'm not a big fan of the Sivir Azir just because Azir feels better when he's cutting backwards, and this team is all about getting in the face. But if you can get on top of Jace in particular, he's the most immobile of this CJ Entus lineup. You can definitely take the team fight win if you're Spenu. A very balanced lineup with tankiness, damage, and that on the hunt for the engage.
Yeah, and Spenu absolutely can fight this poke comp. When we think about their engage so far, they have two forms of heavy primary engage. Maokai and Alistar, they have, if Sol can pull off the TP flanks, he can definitely get on that back line. And there's not the most peel in the world for CJ Entus. They've got some good displacement with Gragas and Janna, but that may still not be enough to stop both Maokai and Alistar from getting back there. So I love the fact that we're seeing CJ go with this poke composition. When we think about CJ as a team, they have always been good at kite and poke compositions. It has been one of their strengths. Now, whether that has translated to 3 new substitutes, that's the question. Has this style that certainly we know Shy, Ambition, and Mad Life to use very well been imprinted onto these substitutes? Is that how they've been trained? Well, let's get into game 1, CJ versus Spenu. Okay, so the mostly substitute lineup of CJ takes the rift here up against the starting lineup, what we see most of the time from Spenu Sonic Boom. What can they do in this one?
The crazy thing to me is, I think you alluded to this in your explanation, you take away the names. This is a very CJ Entus comp, but with 3 new substitutes, is it still going to have the same flavor? We were waiting to see this from their starting lineup, so it's just really curious to see them, you know, change up the lineup, but still play a very CJ Entus poke comp.
Right, and I guess what confuses me, Papa Smithy, is why now?
Exactly.
With the Jace, why now? Out of all those times, we've always had that question, where is the Jace for CJ?
It's right in the mid lane, Monte Cristo. It's on screen now.
We've seen Jace frequently in the LCS, certainly not a bad champion by any means, but the team that we most expected to adopt it takes up that challenge against the last place team here when we thought that this really played into their strengths even in more important matches. So it's a bit weird.
And there's a lot of questions, just zooming out a little bit, talking about this lineup. This is a very important series for CJ Entus just because they're in that middle of the table. They're fighting for seeding. You can't afford to look past this game. Dropping even one game, which of course 2 teams have already done to Spenu recently, affects their chances of pushing up towards 3rd or 2nd spot. So you can't afford in this Champions schedule to look past games, and maybe they've done that with 3 substitutes.
Yeah, maybe they have. Well, looks like Space and Max are going to want this 2v2. They do see Nuclear and Secret walking to lane and adjust their assignment based on that. That means they will get the Maokai versus Rumble matchup in the bottom side. Coco may have some issues early on against this Azir just because that zone control while he tries to walk up to auto attack can be pretty good against poke-based champions. We've seen Azir kind of dominate lane against Moonglaive Ezreal, Victor, a lot of these champions that people want to play in the mid lane.
With all the sources of magic damage, Helper on the Rumble, the Gragas, and the Corki, all going to be doing primarily magic damage, at least till the mid-game. If Coco goes off, it's going to be so hard to itemize. Only really health will be your salvation against this CJ Entus lineup.
Yeah, that's definitely true. One thing that's interesting about the Jace and the Corki, in terms of that damage itemization, is like you're saying, in the mid game, it's pretty easy just to itemize for MR because unlike Varus and Corki, Jace and Corki don't really have the same power spikes. So
sure,
you do get more versatility in terms of your timings because you'll be powerful for longer, but it's not that same kind of insane spike that you have, around 20 minutes or 25 minutes on those two champions. So less of a risk, but the reward is lower too.
And why do you speculate that? Is that just because you have to power up the tier? Because, I mean, the itemization for a Varus and a Jace is pretty similar.
Well, it's just that now with the way that is, we may see a gank here. Trick coming in. There's the cast. Coco just going for a shot, but not going to take anything. He requires more levels now to kind of max out his abilities.
It feels like the item timings, though, the armor penetration and the mana moon is the same, but I think I agree with you in that it's not the level 9 power spike. It feels like it's been pushed to, what, level 11 level 12?
Indeed. I agree with you. So, Max made an early roam. Not too much coming out of it. Just driving Sasin back, making him a little bit more apprehensive about where he could be going. Ward placed in the top side jungle just to see if Rek'Sai is going to be coming for a gank in the mid lane. As Coco pushes up, Helper playing it safe in the bottom side. And Helper's Rumble's very interesting because in that first game, he really misplayed some of his ultimates. But then, his second game on Rumble, he was very much on point. Great team fighting with that champion. So I'm not sure what to think about him right now. I prefer to think that it was just nerves in game one and he's stabilized a little bit, but this is a big test for him.
Now look, all 4 games played what? Gnar and Rumble, I believe, exclusively so far as a competitive player. Those are all champions, very important. Team fighting oriented champions, they require split timings, so to be on champs like that, they must at least trust that he has the potential to get there.
He played 1 game of Maokai, I believe. But other than that, yes, those have been his primary picks.
Maokai less skill shots.
Maokai, pretty easy.
There's a reason why when you see someone either changing role or a new top laner coming in, my first thought is just ban Maokai, because why not Maokai? If you're just new on the scene, if you have nerves, no skill shots required, targeted engage, just teleport and go.
Yeah, no teamwork required either, especially
I mean the teleport maybe.
Yeah, maybe, but all top laners could be said of. So
true.
It's not as complex as running something like Gnar. Even though Gnar does have a lot of favorable matchups, it comes into question as to how well the individual player can manage that Gnar rage. So, yeah, I agree. The Maokai is pretty darn easy. Now, Trick here at the enemy Raptors. They're still looking to gank for Coco. So I guess the plan is for CJ right now, get Coco rolling. Everyone else is on their own. Trick coming around, hiding in the fog of war. Oh, he was seen.
Well, has to back away. The big fat frame of the Gragas.
Well, also, he was walking up while the minion wave was coming through. That's a bit of an error, actually. You have to pay attention to your own minion waves to know when those are coming in and play accordingly and make those adjustments. So he's going to have to just go and get the Scuttle Crab instead. And we haven't seen Catch really go for a bottom side gank. And considering that Trick has not been down there really at all so far, it seems like it would be a logical place to engage.
One of the things you always say about these Rumble Maokai lanes that we inevitably see at least once a night is just the penchant for pushing for both these champions. Being in position for that counter gank can reap you so many rewards if you're on a high presence jungler. And this is Rek'Sai versus Gragas. We're talking about early presence from both CJ Entus and Spenu.
Yeah, and we so many times, as you're saying in this matchup, for the counter ganks, the jungle has to play in conjunction with the Rumble. That's one of the prerequisites to playing Rumble as a team, is the jungler has to know and communicate very effectively with the top laner as to when he is overextending towards the enemy turret. So the wave control is super important because especially against a Maokai, Rumble is very, very vulnerable to getting killed. So it's unwise to be in a situation where the Gragas can't be there, especially now as Helper is pushing forward, which we are seeing Gragas head down to that side of the map. But they're going to have the information deep ward already at the Krugs.
We're already seeing rotations from both sides. Max is left top and is now roaming towards the bottom side. The shops have come through. BF Sword, so we're expecting Corki to swap back. Neither team were able to take advantage of the vertical jungling because, of course, we saw the lane swap called in the top lane. So no dragons down at 7 minutes.
Yeah, it's also so rare to see that early dragon, even in a lane swap situation in Korea right now. Most teams just don't want to take that risk early on in the game. And there are very few timing windows for it, honestly. It's hard to pick that one up. So, Coco going to grab his first blue buff. And we will see, of course, Sasan do the same in a couple of minutes, barring any kind of contest from CJ Entis. Corki is nearly level 6, so he's going to be pretty happy. A little bit behind in CS, but we sort of expect to see that in the Sivir Corki lane pre-6.
The lane definitely changes. You know, pre-6, spell shielding against a Corki. It's easy as you like, of course, with the phosphorus bomb transfer time, but what movement time. But of course, once you get the access to the rockets with the fairly instant damage, Tricks up top. Don't have Equalizer available.
There it goes. Equalizer down. Soul still has his ultimate though. Here comes Rek'Sai. They're going to have to back off of that. Really a difficult gank to make work when Maokai is that close to his turret. Soul really doesn't have to use anything at all to escape from that.
And Soul exclusively built for lane as well. He went for the cow, not for the more greedy option of the Catalyst into the Righteous Glory for team fights. So double Dorans and cow, not killing that tree.
Yeah, especially with the Gragas.
True.
Yeah, especially with that Gragas, that does make it quite difficult. So a little bit of relief for the Spenu bottom lane as they start to push a little bit more aggressively with the knowledge of where the enemy jungler is.
So this is the build from Sarsen that's definitely coming through. We saw it from Faker 2 days ago. Keen did it in the LCS. Nashor's Tooth, okay. You know, I was kind of tunneling on the fact that the passive, of course, the on-hit damage with the AP scaling doesn't apply on the soldiers, but what it gives you in the laning phase, that high amount of attack speed and AP, really gives you a lot of early lane control. It's like an earlier power spike than you would expect from this Azir, and it feels like you don't necessarily need the mana regen of the Morellonomicon, and you get the same 20% CDR.
I think the nice thing, here we go. Gank on to Helper now, catch on the top side. Oh, there's the knock-up. Ult is popped. They're going to try and kill him. He will go down. Red buff will take him out, burn him, and that's going to be first blood for Spenu, and that's what we expected to see.
Yeah, it's 2 substitutes, of course. Jungler on that top side. No defensive ward down from Trick for Helper. Nothing he could do.
So, Space just going to get knocked up there. Nothing too fancy from Secret. It's a lot of mana for not really a good trade, though. You have to be careful when you use those abilities because you don't have a lot to work with. Trick just going to go ahead and clear out a pink ward in that bottom side. And one thing that's really nice, I was thinking about this too since we saw it, but one thing that's nice about that Nashor's Tooth is that for Azir, it gives you a lot of control over the wave. So not only do we see it against less mobile, I mean, we saw it against the Kassadin, we're seeing it against the Jace. So they can't just jump out of the Sand Soldier's range. So the more attack speed you have, the more guaranteed hits you're going to get, right? The more damage you can do in some of these trades because they can't immediately escape it. Kassadin can't at least pre-6. Or you just waste a whole bunch of mana. But the other part, too, is you get so much control over the speed at which you push. It's not like you just have a bunch of AP and you bomb out a wave with a normal AP mid laner. It's you have so much control over where the wave is at any given point because you're not doing that much damage every hit, so you can stop attacking and just keep on freezing the lane or whatever you need to do.
I'll put my analyst hat on as well, Monte Cristo, and just talk about the fact that, okay, you're subbing out basically a Morellonomicon, which gives you a bit of mana regen as we go into a pause for the Nationals too, getting the same amount of CDR. One thing that I feel that you can take advantage of if you're the enemy team, if you're CJ Entis, it's a much more blue-centric build. You need the blue buff for any semblance of mana regen because you will not itemize for it anywhere in your build.
Yeah. And I guess the last thing is, it's surprising to us that this is coming in because it's 512, right? In 513, that item's going to be much stronger.
More ability power, 20 more ability power, 10% less attack speed. Definitely if you're a mage, erring towards the ability power in terms of preference.
Right. But even so, that's probably going to be even better on Azir in the next patch. So it is a bit weird that we're seeing it the mass AP itemization change. Looks like we have an issue over on the CJ side of things. Looks like Max maybe having some problems. And he has left the game.
Is that enough? Packing up.
Send in Mad Life.
Yep. Do you think we'll ever get there, Monte Cristo, mid-game substitutes?
No.
I mean, we probably didn't expect, the between-series substitutes. Of course, it was Masters last year that really debuted that as an idea. I can dream. I'm a soccer fan. We see plenty of substitutes.
Just take the reins. They have to reset all their hotkeys.
In the middle of, like, the flash, like, all right, Mad Life has the better WQ combo. We got this. Sub him in.
Well, Papa Smithy, if it comes to that, we're also going to be pausing for commercial breaks in the middle of games. So,
and with that, we'll go over to our Spenu ad.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't, but we shall see.
Post-kill celebrations.
Oh, also something important to mention is that Spenu was actually given a warning for pausing the game for Sasen's wrist pain.
Really?
In the last match that Spenu played in. So if they have a pause like that again, they will be docked a match point.
And that is the same infraction. Actually, this is the series between serial infractors, because of course, Space famously needs go to the little boys.
That's right.
So it's interesting that's an equivalent punishment, because it feels like the wrist pain, I mean, maybe it's hard to quantify that
I don't really agree with that. I think that the problem is you can't know whether a player is telling the truth about that, I guess.
Either.
But, I mean, obviously in many sports, having an injury break is perfectly okay, and if somebody's muscles are seizing up, you kind of don't have a choice but to stop. You can't really keep playing through it.
So work with me here, Monty. We can't have mid-game substitutes. You said big flat no to that one. How about mid-game drink breaks?
Okay, or bathroom breaks.
I don't know about the bathroom breaks. How do you explain that to the viewer? What's the way you kind of communicate that?
Yeah, I mean, really the pro team should just get catheters. That's what I think.
That's where you want it to go? Are we sticking with booths in that scenario?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. What happens below the table stays below the table.
Just change out all the seats for toilets.
Oh, dear.
So, looks like Space and Max getting a little bit of quality time with this tower, with the Sheen. It's always nice. Start to chip that away.
So let's learn about Nationals, too, because, I mean, Jace is no slouch in wave clear, though he's kind of gated around, acceleration game, but the EQ combo means wave clear every 10 seconds when it comes to taking out the backline or really chunking out the melee minions. It feels like the instant pushing advantage should be squarely in Sasen's favor.
Yeah, you would think that, especially for the moment, although we do see the armor penetration starting to get pretty far up there. Looks like Coco will not be finishing Smanamune anytime soon, and there are a lot of frantic pings from Spenu as Catch manages to get into the pit. That is a very clever tunnel, by the way, as we take a look from the pixel brush into the dragon. So if there was a ward in the river, it wouldn't have seen him. I actually don't think I've seen that before.
It's really creative pathing to the extent that even though Jace left lane, it wasn't to even check for this dragon. They probably have an inkling now that Secret and Nuclear walked over and cleared a ward. But that's an innovative and smart move by Spenu to pick up the first dragon.
Yeah, especially if I'm sure Catch, I didn't see him use his lens right there, but I'm sure he did at one point, or they had knowledge that there wasn't any ward in there. But if you pink that brush and then use that pathing with Rek'Sai, you can really pick up something kind of cool.
So I'm going to have an analyst moment and get a bit excited about Spenu, even though not much has happened this game. The fact that they kind of chose to get Sasen that instant wave clear option in the Nationals too. They waited to see Coco go and pick up the blue buff, and they went and took a creative dragon. That's more levels of forethought than we've expected from Spenu in their first 12-match series, so really nice to see.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Surprising that they would have these timings down and can kind of control that first dragon so easily. So yeah, certainly playing around the third blue buff spawn.
And that's a dragon against Rumble, Gragas, Corki, against champions who have fairly early power spikes, Rumble especially one of them. So
we're not quite there yet. I mean, Trinity Force just only now picked up, so I'm not sure that they would want to fight necessarily this early, but here comes the damage.
It's real, and where the build goes actually will be interesting to us. Of course, Manamun builds out of the pickaxe now, so he could go straight for a Last Whisper. He started off with the longsword, which no longer builds into the Manamun. I'm still expecting the Manamun next, but flexible options for Coco.
Yeah, I also am curious where he's going. So, of course, Catch just waiting there on the side. Sasson still with a lot of HP and mana. Catch will just make his presence known in the mid lane. Secret there. Oh!
So we're talking about 4 to 100 to 0 assassin EQ combos. Okay, not a realistic thing, but that's a serious chunk of damage.
And his accuracy, too, just finding these angles around the minion wave to start playing with that poke. And Sasson immediately goes into a Seeker's Arm Guard after that. Well warranted, but if this Last Whisper is finished next, it may not actually have too big of an effect. He's going to take some time to actually stack that now to make sure that it's in its peak efficiency.
It is the Manamun that's the pickup, so we were hoping for the Last Whisper. Certainly going to be a Last Whisper soon, even though he's picked up another pickaxe on top of the Manamun. This poke, do Spenu have the options to deal with the poke? Of course, they have the potential of that flank from Maokai. Kind of need turrets down to deal with that, so the laning phase itself going to be painful for Sus.
Yeah. Also, it's worth noting the farm here in the mid lane is very good for both of these mid laners. Not very many CS missed so far. Helper getting outclassed in the top side, it must be noted. Bullied out just a little bit. Going for that Leandries early for the lane matchup up against Maokai.
Can we just tell the viewers this is 5:13 and look like geniuses, Monty? Leandries Rush going to be a massive thing on 5:13. The Jace will be interesting. The Azir with Nashor's will also be a consideration. Coco's taking a bit of damage, able to knock away Catch. I guess the one thing I'll say is that because Azir has gone for this Nashor, it's because he's basically pigeonholed himself into instant pushing. When you're an AD-based champion like Jake's, last hitting under turret should be pretty trivial.
Yeah, quite easy indeed. So Sasson here, still looking to get some damage down. Trick is waiting there, but they are seeing Max walk into that brush. Of course, they do have the ward right at the choke point around that dragon, so Pink Ward not going to be effective in seeing what exactly Spenu can keep track of.
What CJ want to force at this present time, with the fact that Soul's actually completed the Spirit Visage very early, is they pretty much want ARAM wars. They want to sit in mid and have that physical damage poke from the Jace really register with no hope of a flank because you're in that really short, you're both outer turrets up mid lane. The laning phase obviously is going to be what prevails, but no semblance of armor means that Coco's damage is going to register to all 5 members.
Yeah, that's if he can actually escape from this lane soon. They've got to start to make a push, and here
Sasson's
it comes.
left the turret.
But he's back there, uses that Sand Soldier, gets chunked immediately upon returning to lane. Helper's even making a move down here. They're starting to group. Looks like they want to give up that top tower, which is already very low, and maybe force something in the mid and the bottom side. So Nuclear having some issues at the moment, matching up to the pressure from those rockets, and Sasson has to go back. And you know, honestly, if Max and Helper, or Max and Trick rather, can just harass this blue buff, then it's going to be a free mid lane.
Yeah,
oh boy,
the blue buff
Sasson.
releases free outer turret in the mid lane. We already saw the bottom is chunked and have a bit of damage as well.
Wow, I mean, that's some great play from CJ just to delay him long enough that they take the more important objective, and now Trick's down in the bottom side, just hopping lane to lane, helping out, get some damage safely.
And it's CJ enters time to shine. Got those early power spikes, got the poke comp, throw multiple members in a lane, and turrets will roll down.
Yeah, and as the turrets roll down, it's important that, ooh, wow, that attack speed really doing work on the turret. So Sasson going to town, he's going to get a mid lane of his own, pops the Sand Soldier on there, nicely played.
Maokai's teleporting, waiting to that's in the bottom lane.
Max actually is going to get knocked up by Soul right there. Helper on the outside already TPing down. Good equalizer across 3. Soul getting low on the outside, and Coco just going to flash to pursue Sasson into the choke. So 2 for none for Spenu. Very early all in around that dragon, but that's going to mean it goes over to CJ Andis, barring any kind of crazy steal. Blue buff will be taken by them too, so CJ starting to dominate the map. And if they can get this bottom tower, they can flip Corki into the top side after the dragon, and they'll save that very low turret in top, and they can just send Helper into bottom. So these lane assignments are going to be extremely preferable to CJ Entus as soon as this tower goes down.
And the 1-2 punch we kind of talked about in Champion Select, layering down a very nice equalizer, splitting the threats for Jace to get into hammer form and taking out the Azir. That is perfect team fighting from what is 3 rookies. Wait to see the replay here.
Yeah.
So the first big point, of course, is the equalizer from Helper, which, given his first game, we couldn't deny that it might have been a question mark, but look at this. Really nice target selection, and they get the 2 closest kills.
I mean, honestly, because of all that MR, getting space within melee range of the Maokai proved actually useful because he was doing a lot of Trinity Force damage and had the Shred, too, from the Gat. So the big mistake, though, was Soul actually twisted advanced onto Janna in that fight before getting Monsooned out. So kind of a misplay. He probably just misclicked onto Corki. But that did set up an easier time to get the Janna out of lane. So it looks like they will be too late to save the top turret, though, unfortunately for CJ Entus.
Wait to see what the lane allotments are. It looks like Corki's up top, wants to push down that wave. Sivir's going to answer it as well. Maokai has the magic resist, which in the laning phase is usually preferable against this Corki, but turret damage is going to be massive. They need wave clear, they need it fast up top, do Spenu.
Yes, they do. So they're starting to send some people into the top side. Sivir will be there shortly. 4 members of Spenu there already. They see there's a bit, wow, Secret has to be a little bit more careful. Getting really close to that Corki trick there to back him up in case there was any kind of funny business. So Rumble is getting a little bit more farm. He has been outclassed thus far, but Soul, as you were saying, has built really hard into this lane matchup and doesn't have that team fighting righteous glory, so he's going to be pretty useless for a while.
Building for lane, and then this situation, what CJ wanted to do. Whenever you see someone build for lane, you rotate in another damage threat, or if you see them build exclusively for lane, you force team fights. They won the team fight around Dragon. Now they're rotating, so the 1-2 punch. Beautiful to see from CJ Entus.
Yeah, and that's the thing here. Spenu may be ahead in gold, but they are certainly not in control of this game right now. We see the buffs falling in favor of CJ. CJ is starting to really hit their stride. Space going to get knocked up. There's the On the Hunt. He's all alone, headbutted back. What can he do here? He's putting down the damage. Nuclear going to sidestep the Phosphorus Bomb. Space going to flash. Braceseeker hits him, and that's it. Chilling Smite.
Very strange for Space to be halfway down a lane with no turret to defend him and nobody around. Poke now from Sarsen. 1 EQ is half his health, and the turret damage from Jace, that certainly wasn't changed. It's massive.
Well, but the thing is, as soon as they see, oh, Soul, wow, as soon as they see 3 members committed topside, CJ already has the momentum with that push and nearly kills a tier 2. So, you know, Space drawing that many people up to the top lane has been effective, with Catch coming in, rather. There's the knockback with the Monsoon. Will save them from the Alistar. Chilling Smite used, but not going to be effective.
So difficult to play the Alistar against Janna. Of course, you think about just the Q, you know, the Howling Gale being an interrupt for the headbutt pulverize. The Monsoon, the Q was on cooldown, but the Monsoon also an interrupt. So Alistar, if you're on form as the Janna, really has few options if we're talking about linear, run at you and engage.
Yeah, absolutely. So, where's CJ going to go from here? They need to get down the remaining outers. They could push forward into the mid lane to take a tier 2. Let's take a look at our tier 2 tower HPs around the map right now. Coco has a mountain of gold to spend. Muramana is complete. Fully stacked up. So, low. There we go. Extra. Okie dokie. Good item.
Not feeling confident enough to build towards the BF sword into the Bloodthirster just yet. Going for the Hex Drinker, just so he can get into Hammer form, you'd have to think. If you have a Hex Drinker shield, suddenly Hammer form is an option in teamfights.
Yeah, especially since he's probably, his job is going to be 1v1ing Saucin. If he can kind of get into that back line, Saucin doesn't stand much of a chance. He will just be exploded. So Helper now, getting his revenge in the top lane. Soul has to fall back to the tier 2. But at the end of that, I mean, we're still looking at an even gold game. Spenu has been doing a good job of hanging on here, and they've traded objectives every time we've seen CJ strike. They were able to take that mid turret right back with the help of that Nashor's Tooth first and the natural damage on the turrets from the Sand Soldiers.
And then we come to the oldest strategical game in the book, the poke comp versus the engage comp. As you mentioned, because they're matching the turrets coming down, there will be the potential for those flank engages from the Maokai. There will be the potential from Secret maybe to make a play like we saw a couple of days ago from Bang and get the WQ from behind. It's going to be a very execution heavy on both sides, but for now, CJ is going to be happy with how things have played out in the first 25 minutes. You need to be at least equal in goal, but they're ahead in objectives, not even now. Of course, the last objective being answered. All outer turrets on the map down.
Yeah, and Soul, he still doesn't have that Righteous Glory. When we talk about Spenu's ability to engage in 45 seconds around this next dragon, is he actually going to complete that item? Because it is crucial to get onto the back line.
Let me ask you a question. You've got about the combined cost. Is it the Righteous Glory or is it the Home Guard boots? Because he has neither.
Yeah, this is actually really bad for Spenu. I think the itemization was a bit amiss because ever since CJ had some lanes to farm deep in, we've seen Helper come back in terms of farm. He's narrowed that farm gap to about 15. So it's not that 40 lead that we had earlier in this game. So you see kind of why we don't usually see the builds go this way for a Maokai in this matchup.
I mean, the only reason that you'd rush the Spirit Physician, Righteous Glory is complete now. The only reason you rush it is you're expecting a long laning phase against the Rumble and just slightly winning trades. It's already a matchup where Maokai is expected to win by what, 20 CS, maybe 25 CS? It's only 10 CS ahead. He's even itemized for the lane and hasn't been able to grow and cultivate that lead.
All right, Glory's done though. He is good on that power spike, and they are going to send him into the pit, so it looks like it won't hurt him too terribly much. The question is, does he need the Home Guard boots too? Would that be helpful in the particular setup here? I mean, they don't have great wards for a Home Guard teleport.
Yeah, super, super deep wards that require a Home Guard to get in. I mean, Twisted Advance onto Jace is the first sentence of a one-team fight for Spenu.
Yeah, well, as long as the Jason, John, and Knockback don't immediately cancel that out.
Sure.
So Helper here, he wants to play the lane. Meanwhile, Spenu somehow gets onto the Dragon. Actually, CJ makes a mistake and lets them into the river. Here we go. It's like the Dragon will be taken by Sivir, but kind of a strange play by CJ. You should never allow Spenu to get into the river because you need time to land that poke. If they're already on the Dragon, you can't poke them out enough that it's actually meaningful.
We talked about shot calling. You have to put the shot calling around Helper, not actually walking out to the Dragon, not teleporting early. Whenever we see Marin play Rumble, for example, picks up the Home Guard boots, or at minimum, teleports to an outer turret and gets into position to put down the Equalizer. Because of the execution required with that spell, need to be there early. So showing up late, burned down by Spenu, free Dragon.
Yeah, you just have to maintain position. They could still get this turret, though. A lot of poke damage landing onto Spenu as Koku uses To the Skies to get over to the Wraiths, or Raptors, whatever they are. I can't keep track of all these different changes, Papa Smithy.
Just don't call them popcorn chickens. That's an Atlas special right there.
Why are they popcorn?
You know, KFC, popcorn chicken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Never want one, want a handful, all four.
Okay, there's the Equalizer just to push people off. Now, Sven is going to respond with an all-in space in the front line already. And there we go. Janna goes down immediately. No Monsoon used. So that's going to be a disengage from CJ. Pretty crucial mistake, but Spenu finds the engage they were looking for. And that's a bit curious. CJ should be able to stop their first engage at the very least with all their disengage spells, but they didn't actually execute.
They have the minion pressure in both bot and top lane, so they're actually able, even as a four-man unit with the poke from Jason and wave clear, to just stay in mid lane, not really defend or need to push back any ground. And Speno just need to try and organize these side waves because couldn't really make any objectives pay against CJ with that pick.
Yeah, you also don't need to recall right now if you're CJ. You can actually hold that siege for a few more seconds. Maybe you get that turret. You at least get a little bit more damage. So they choose an early recall timing, actually. It's not going to help them out. Max is back now. Has that Aegis of the Legion.
From support, we don't see this too often, but yeah, used all his gold basically. In fact, you have to say between the Chalice and the Aegis, quite a lot of gold income come through for the Janna.
Yeah, that is a bit interesting early. Trick going for a Spirit Visage, so kind of weird itemization that we don't normally see. Catch with the more typical Cinder Hulk into Locket. And Zonya's Hourglass for Sasin, so he's going to be able to survive this Jace all-in now.
He's also going to be able to engage himself, because the moment you finish Zonya, suddenly the bigger Zia set combos are that much safer. And I know that you kind of shake your head at that. Remember, they've got Maokai is going to go hard initiate. They already have Siva. They're definitely an initiate comp, so at least flexibility for that kind of option for Sasin.
Yeah. I mean, why I say that is that they just don't have to. They have so many other forms of engage.
Why not all of them?
It does provide an option, but that's kind of like the last resort. Okay, so Coco getting that typical poke from behind the wall into the enemy team.
If we see Maokai go back to base, you can see there is a lane ward behind CJ Enter, so they do have the opportunity for the teleport home guard flank, and the poke. I think it's time already, Monte Cristo. You cannot sit and catch poke from this team.
No, you can't. Even the Gragas barrels are going to be doing a little bit of work and just chipping you away. Looks like Sasin has his home guard boots, so he'll get back there. Righteous Glorious pop, but there is just nothing to go on. Even space. There's the equalizer going down. Doesn't really hit anybody, but it gives them the angle onto the tower. And here comes Trick, actually. Nice play onto the Sivir. Knocking her back isn't enough, though. Monsoon will cancel Secret's engage.
A massive play from Trick to actually get the displacement. It surprised Nuclear.
Yeah,
had to use all his summoners and the ultimate afterwards. That's a big take. Will they at least chunk down this mid lane turret? Looks like the answer is yes.
Yeah, no, they have to wait for the
minion wave.
Yeah, the wave is a little bit far off, but
SBE needed a clear shock call. I was surprised to see Soul just standing under the turret, eating the poke. Remember, he still doesn't have a lot of armor, just now finished the Glacial Shroud. It was crying for that teleport engage and didn't get one.
No, certainly did not. And one thing I'm impressed about with Helper is a lot of more amateur Rumbles will not drop the equalizer to siege a turret. They think that they have to hold on to it for a team fight, but you just want to lay it down and try and take the objective. You have to read that that's going to be the win condition of your team composition, and you can't be gun-shy about using it in situations like that. So and it's on such a short cooldown anyway. By the time you end up sieging another tier 2, it'll be back up. Nothing really to worry about.
It just stops either Siva or Azir from standing, 500 units away from the minion wave and instant clearing it. It's punishing them for standing there. They have to kite backwards. That last 400, 500 health of the turret evaporates instantly.
Yeah. Coco going to recall now. See what his next item is. If he's going to complete that Bloodthirster, looks like that will not be at Malmortius, actually.
Man, I don't know about you, but I look at Sasin's build, I look at Coco's build. I sense some brawling potential coming through from the item purchase they've gone for. Both of them realize, whether it's in a team fight or maybe even just in the 1v1, they're going to get in, they're going to get dirty.
Yeah.
You like a good scrap, don't you, Monty?
I love it when Coco gets dirty. With Jace, with Azir.
Oh,
I love
man.
the Coco.
Those dirty Azir sex from Coco, my goodness. The one that he curled around the turret.
Oh, God.
In
the base.
In the base.
Yeah, I know. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Papa Smithy.
Coco, is he the highest? I believe he's got the highest kill total in the league.
He does right now. He has now actually surpassed Goong. He was tied with Goong going into this game.
Very bloodthirsty. Rest in peace, Doa.
That's right, he's dead. He's never coming back.
He's dead.
Oh, the face check. Oh, dangerous. Have to use that Gale and the gate to get out. Well, Corki is soloing Dragon with a million wards around him, so he feels comfortable doing that all by his lonesome. Second Dragon for CJ Antis.
One of the things we mentioned in Champion Select, why not Varus? Because, of course, Varus and Jace very similar champions. Gate's one of the big separators. Jace has a little bit more mobility. Man, that poke damage is strong, but the poke damage from the Q from Varus has a very similar item ceiling. The Gate is the big difference. If you're going to go for a true poke up, having that disengaged speed is massive.
Yeah, it is. And as we can see right now, SBE getting tricky with the Baron as the tier 2 siege goes down. It's going to be a very slow Baron.
I mean,
how much are they going to have to give up actually an inhibitor for this is going to be the question. How far can CJ push? Because there's no defense on the side of SBE. This is a big, big trade that they're making.
They need a Baron buff minion wave to help them.
Yeah, they're going to take it out, but oh, there it is. Baron buff minion wave will actually maybe save this tower. No, it won't. Well, that actually probably isn't a very good trade for Spenu.
Because the next time Baron comes up, they are in that horrible position of having an exposed inhibitor on the opposite side of the map. You know, you're willing to sacrifice maybe the top inhibitor turret, even then, not an ideal trade, but kind of more equivalency. Unless they can really take advantage of this Baron buff, feels like CJ have a lot of options come 6 minutes time.
Yeah, and how are they going to take advantage of the Baron buff right now? Also, because they don't have really any minion waves except
they're going to rush down mid.
The mid lane going in their favor. Sasin did some work clearing that out and taking it, but I'm not sure they're going to be able to do much more than that, really. Trick may be getting a little bit greedy here, but he's got Max just to put down a pink ward and find Secret. Not so secret anymore, are you? Helper? Why did he use Zhonya's?
Style points?
Okay.
There's rookie mistakes, and there's the casual Zhonya's.
The casual Zhonya's is the most bad manner. You say, I don't even need this to beat you. Go ahead.
I think the Zac Zhonya's is the most bad manner for the sick pose value.
Pose value is good. Troll pole gold is also good.
Whenever it actually hurts your damage output, I'm impressed. It's kind of like when I'm playing a ranked game and I'm feeling really confident, I just flash in the base because I don't even need that flash for the first 5 minutes of the laning phase Monte Cristo. League of Legends hard mode.
I like to just flash in my opponent's face at level 1. Not all in them, just flash backwards so they know I don't have flash. That's the hard mode.
You could go Reginald style, Ignite level 1, also very manly. There's some alpha plays you can make in League of Legends, and Helper just showed us one of the strongest.
All right, catch on the split push right now with that. Rek'Sai can get over in a jiffy. There aren't any tunnels on top side, though, so he needs to be careful about how this split push works. He will take the tier 2 in the end. And you know what's funny about this game is it's been really mostly dictated by CJ, but they're also 4K gold in the hole. You wouldn't know by watching, though.
It's because the things like poke really, I mean, the item timings for Jace, once he hits a certain point, kind of become irrelevant. It feels like the 5th, 6th item for a Jace isn't really going to change much of how his kit works. You can maybe throw in an Infinity Edge and get the world's luckiest W crit, but in general, hits that power spike early. His catch will take this last outer turret. The question I was actually going to ask you, will we see an engage? We do see an engage.
Trick with the knock-up, and here we go. Rumble, Equalizer cuts off Sivir in the backline. There's a knock-up from Secret, and Soul, he's still got his ult on. Nobody really hurt. Unbreakable Will goes down, though. Here comes the TP. Where is it? Nope. Helper, just going to die. I thought I heard a TP.
No TPs. It was 3v3 action. Not a lot of damage with the 3 members. Spenu take another turret. I was going to ask you, Monte Cristo, in metas past, in years past, you would always expect a certain amount of structures and a certain amount of gold to really be considered still competitive in the game as a poke comp. Has those timings changed? It feels like 5th Dragon isn't going to be realistic for either teams. Only 2 apiece at 37 minutes into the game. Has CJ's window closed? And if not, what needs to happen to make it?
All right. Let's take a look at this. I mean, Trick has a great engage here with the knock-up. Sivir ult popped immediately.
And no damage.
Yeah, they try to just knock him down, but between the 2 forms of % damage reduction from Maokai and Alistar, they just don't have enough to take down the front line. That is not a good sign for CJ Entus.
So answer my question then. Has the window closed for CJ, or where should they be at this one? Because it feels like a gold lead at minimum would be expected. They're 6,000 gold behind.
Yeah, and I think we can see right now that maybe that fall off is happening actively. Not even a Thorn Mail yet from Soul, but that's also going to be a pretty dangerous item. So Speno really hanging in this one quite well.
Well, from no armor at what, 17, 15 minutes in the game, 20 minutes later, Frozen Heart and the makings of a Thorn Mail with that Chain Vest, and Aranduin's completed by the Rek'Sai as well. Suddenly, and we saw it in that 3v3, Coco's not really shredding down members anymore.
No, he's not. So the question now for CJ is, can they play to get a pick, really? It's going to be hard to find the right person, though, to find the pick onto, because Alistar and Maokai are not really feasible.
And the risk of the pick is the burst damage is coming from Jace. If it's flashed away from, because of course you can flash away from the 2 disguise Q damage, or if it's turned around, it's going to be a problem. Speaking of a turnaround.
And here's Trick. He gets knocked up. He's all by himself, and now Soul finds his way onto the backline. They lock down Max. Can they finish it up? No, Soul just going to get out of there. Sasin very low after the equalizer in that bottleneck. Now we see a possible turnaround right here as they keep on walking up towards that minion wave. CJ going to exit stage left here into the river.
He is very low, so he cannot really be in range, even though he's one of the primary damage threats. Feels like Dragon is the safest call, and with a minute 40 to Baron, Spender should pick up their third Dragon. Movement speed for the engage comp, that's an important thing.
That is an important thing, and there's no real retaliation here. Coco is going to go on a secret mission into the top side, try and take down this turret, push this wave forward, but that's about all they could do. And that gold may not be that useful to them at this stage. Ghostblade done for Coco. It's like a stack in the black coming for Spenu. And are they going to choose to engage on this? CJ should have to leave immediately. They should be very scared of what can happen to them.
Yeah, a lot of wave clear coming through from the Sivir. Zeus coming, doesn't have home guard boots. No, he does have home guard, so he'll be there very, very soon. Baron control, that's going to be the big question. Let's talk about the Baron buff. It feels like Spenu got a lot, but it wasn't necessarily off the back of the Baron buff. Next Baron buff, probably a preview for who will be winning this game.
Yeah, CJ has to get a good position on that to get the poke down early. And Coco getting caught out. That is huge. And he has the Hex Drinker up, but it's not going to be enough. Soul is able to escape from that all-in, and now Trick will fall in the back line. Flash forward from Nuclear. He gets a crit, takes down the Janna for the double. Sasson still chasing. Can Sasson go through with this? He's not committing with his E quite yet. Shield up onto Sasson, but they are not going to push this any further. Smart move right there. Just go ahead. You have enough tankiness to take that Baron. Catch and Soul will go back. Actually, I'm surprised Soul is going back. They could definitely just tank the Baron right now. Catch will be there in a jiffy with that Void Rush.
Are there any item timings that justify it? No, Sasson can't complete his death cap. Very strange recall. We've seen games punished for less, Monte Cristo. Strange.
They 100%, with the equalizer down, should have gone for that Baron without recalling.
It's Bloodthirst and Nuclear.
I mean, Catch can recall. He's got Void Rush, but everybody else, there's no excuse. So this is confusing, but it doesn't look like it's going to get punished.
There's no way for CJ, even with some wards around the area, to contest second Baron buff for Spenu. The first one was a very smart, sneaky one that really kept them in the game. We thought the base breaking and bottom might be relevant, but multiple team fight and skirmish wins in a row to Spenu, and suddenly 10,000 gold ahead.
Yeah, and you see the team fracture right here. The two carries going into the river alone. With this level of engage, you really can't stand to be a part of if you're running that poke composition.
So wait for the flash over, and auto attack, cancelled auto attack, 600 crit into 630 crit, and rest in peace, Janna.
Nobody's going to survive that one. GA onto Nuclear. Very interesting. It's actually a good pickup in this particular situation in case Jace manages to find her all by her lonesome. So this is looking bad for CJ, but Spenu, I mean, all credit to them. They showed up this game. They had some clever Dragon and Baron kills, and they managed to get into a 6-item phase where they have multiple GAs. Of course, we see one onto Soul, too. I guess he just doesn't even care about getting a Thornmail this game, interestingly enough.
And although it felt like at every point CJ were hitting their timings, they were always behind in gold this game. The team with Rumble Jace that was smashing down turrets was behind in gold to a balanced team fight engage comp from Spenu. And now you're at the point where it's late enough in the game and the gold lead is such that it doesn't feel like CJ really have any options barring the pick of all picks onto one of these primary targets.
Yeah, this is going to have to be a pretty epic comeback for CJ Antis, but I mean, Spenu actually starting to get much, much better in this second round robin.
It's exciting, you know, at one point, you know, 4 or 5 series in, Spender game's almost an eye roll. You're like, oh goodness, this team again, just going to lose 2-0. Suddenly, really competitive against multiple teams. Took a game off KT, in prime condition to take a game off CJ, and there's no Runeglaive Ezreal asterisk this time.
There is the sub-asterisk, though.
That's true.
Trick tries to go in, but there will be the Zonias from Sasson, so they don't actually pick up a kill. They tried to punish Spenu's multi-lane push.
Multi-pronged attack?
Multi-pronged attack. Well, they get him low enough that Spenu starts to get nervous and heads out without actually cracking the base. So CJ clinging tenaciously to life, but that is probably not going to be the case for much longer. I mean, they can't even kill this Maokai once, let alone twice with a GA.
Man, 2 GAs on the lineup when they don't really have the attack speed modifiers. Because remember, this is Corki, Jace. Neither of them are going to build a lot of attack speed items. Only the Blade of the Ruin King for attack speed and the tiny fraction that comes through from the Trinity Force. It's not the attack damage, attack speed, critical strike triumvirate for breaking down tanks. Soul is going to be immortal, and then he'll come back.
Yes. Well,
what's the point of coming back if you're never going to die the first time?
These are very deep philosophical questions that you're asking right now about this movie.
I don't think much philosophy is going to be required from this Spinner line. The moment they locked in the Zhonyas, the moment Sivir picked up a GA, it's all about the hard engage. They're smashing heads in. They're not sitting back and philosophizing.
Well, they can just dive now, too, which is the scary part. So, Spenu, I actually think
But will they dive?
Yeah,
because you never know with these teams. I remember you saying dive, dive, dive during one of those 7-hour casts you had with Doa this week. Diving's never a guarantee.
Well,
unless it's Anarchy.
It is a guarantee that you will win the game by diving, especially if you have all the waves controlled. I mean, you take this dragon and then you just go dive them because there is no penalty to losing out on a dive. That bot lane turret is so low right now. You take dragon, you hit the bot lane, and because everything is pushed up, there's no risk. You die, okay, well, it takes a minute for you to get back up. What exactly is CJ going to do? They can't take a dragon, they can't take a Baron. They can't take any your base turrets more than likely if they don't have waves, so...
But on a human level, you can understand, all right, we'll take the 4th dragon in a couple of seconds, we'll have 4 dragons, 5th dragon win condition. This is a team that hasn't done a lot of winning. On a human level, you can understand, all right, play it safe, no dive. The issue is, you look at item builds, for example, Helper, 0, 2, and 2, got a bit of CS, but has 3 items only. If you wait for these timings and he picks up a 4th, a 5th item and you lose the fight, that's your own mistake. That was the opportunity cost you opted into by not going for the aggressive plays. So it's certainly punishable.
Exactly. Spenu is as powerful as they're going to get. They are 6 items across the board right now, and CJ can only catch up in terms of itemization at this juncture.
And Soul and Catch, just press your CC, flash on top of the Jace. You both have Thornmail for one of them, a huge stack of armor for Soul, Righteous Glory. Cancel out that Jace, only really magic damage after that. Feels like the synergy, this feels like the strategy. Of course, the armor does the double duty and reduces the turret damage as well. But you can never guarantee with these newer teams whether they're assertive enough to go for that dive.
I think they're going to wait for the next Baron, Papa.
Are they going to wait for the 5th dragon as well? All of the buffs.
They won't have them all at the same time.
There'll be an overlap, maybe. No, they won't actually. It would just expire.
Yep.
Which is more important to them, if I was to ask you? Is it the Baron buff or is it the Dragon buff? If you had to choose one.
Dragon.
The Baron buff gives them the minions, does help a little bit against the instant wave clear of Jace and Corki, because of course they want to poke with burst damage, magic, and physical respectively. Yeah, I mean the true damage and the doubling of stats.
Yeah, the true damage and the doubling of stats, and it's especially the doubling of the tower damage too, because if you're going to dive, your AD carry can use just a couple of auto attacks to take down the turret.
And then it feels like the patch notes have been reversed a few times, and Sarsing can just plop his W on top of the turret and instant explode it like it used to with the old AP ratios.
Okay, well, Baron up in a minute. Spenu.
So 6 items. Nuclear is really 6 items.
Yes.
Really, really 6 items.
Maxed out. No boots for him.
Need some captain's boots from someone else. That'd be helpful.
Especially on the Alistar, actually. But Alistar...
Maokai?
Oh, Maokai would work. But well, I don't know about that. I'd rather have him on Alistar. Distortion enchantment just isn't as useful on Alistar.
There's been no flash WQs this game. I don't remember one.
I don't remember one either.
Certainly not Wolf's MVP holy cow performance.
But you want the home guard for the flank on Maokai.
That's fair. So let's just twiddle our thumbs, because unfortunately Spenu just... They're not there, Monty. They're not there in that development. We've seen a lot of things, but we haven't seen the dive.
Well, there's the Righteous Glory. Knock up. There's a Boomerang Blade into Max. Max already at 50% HP. Catch comes in from the flank. He will get the knock up. Chilling Smite down onto Max. There's a nice equalizer into the back line. But Sasin just going to go in. He kills Max right away. Sasin goes down. And Space and Coco doing some work, but they're in the center of 4 tanks right now. Nuclear still starting to attack. And Helper just gets bounced around before his Zhonya Soul on the outside zoning. Nuclear takes the last hit with an auto. And that looks like it'll be a Baron.
And that poke just does nothing from Coco. He's almost a non-factor in these fights. I think, honestly, you switch up your build, get an Infinity Edge there, because unless you get lucky with some crit, you're just doing no damage whatsoever to either soul or catch if you're Coco.
Yeah, it's a big question mark here. I trade out the Ghost Blade for the Infinity Edge.
Sure.
But we don't know if he has that much money. Probably doesn't. So Nuclear going to start this. This is going to be the desperation attempt. All three members of CJ are full HP. Nuclear going to eat a Shock Blast, and CJ actually going to scare them off.
Now the Baron's actually not really that much. It was sitting at about 10,000 health, up to 7,000.
Yeah, they don't have a smite though, so they can't. Oh, they do have a smite with Trick. But they're not going to go for it. Don't want to pick up that objective. Oh man. If they recall, Soul does not have his teleport.
All right, Soul was smart. He canceled his recall, but CJ have a lot of damage on these members. Jace does a lot of damage to either neutrals or turrets. Falling low, 6,000 health.
All right, Trick just going to re-engage. There's the Randuin's active. Coco gets caught. Nuclear with the flank ult, and that'll be it for Jace. Now they're going to go back in. Soul gets a nice knock-up on three members, and Nuclear just charging through right now. He's going to get a ton of auto attacks. Another twisted advance. Goodbye, says the crit. And here we go. Trick getting low. Double kill. Finished off by Nuclear. Now, will they push? 4 men down. Long timers.
Wow. Okay.
Sasin actually moving up the mid lane, but they have not tended to this enormous minion wave in bottom side.
Come on, Spanner. This is the time to be assertive. You couldn't pull off the turret dive, but with 60 seconds death timers, surely you can win the game.
Yeah, they should be able to help her with no TP to try and move that minion wave forward.
A million armor on Soul.
Yes.
He might die
amount.
once.
And here he comes. He's back from the grave. Whoop. Literally.
So was Helper for a second there. Dead again, and Spanu, okay, couldn't do the assertive turret diving, but still won the game.
Yeah, that was another win for Spanu. They've won at least one game in their last 3 best-of-3s. Yes, it was against 3 subs. Don't think we're going to be seeing 3 subs from CJ in game number 2 here. But still, you have to credit Spanu for trading objectives, not really ever falling behind in terms of gold, and cleanly playing those team fights at the very least. Was there sense of how far they were ahead to close out the game very good? Not really, but their team fighting was actually pretty solid.
And against a mid-game comp, remember, Jace, Gragas, Rumble, Corki, even when they hit their power spikes, always keeping themselves at least 2,000 to 3,000 gold ahead, growing it to 10,000 eventually. That takes a lot of doing. That's really solid play against a strong poke comp. CJ enters poke comp. We wondered when we see the Jace. Okay, it's with the subs, but certainly not successful this time.
No, it was not. Looked to